All right. I think we have started. So take it
Right.
away, B. I think we're ready to go.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon, all that have joined us. If we can move to the next slide. My name is B. Nichols, and I am your programs person. And then joining me is my colleague, Maggie. Maggie will be taking us through the slides on e-procurement. All right, a little housekeeping. So due to the volume of participants, everyone is on mute. We ask that you submit your questions in the question box. I believe it's located at the bottom of your screen. And if you have anything that you want to ask during the midpoint of our presentation, you can type it in the box, as well as at the very end of the presentation, there'll be an opportunity for you to ask any other questions. So please use that box and let us know if you're having any technical issues. And as you know, this webinar is being recorded. Okay. This is the agenda. We've gone over welcome and introductions, and the next few agenda items, the purpose through the questions we will be going through right about now, Maggie. All right, the purpose of this RFP. So the purpose of this request for proposal is we're seeking an entity to provide subject matter expertise, training, and technical assistance to DFSS's Chicago Early Learning Direct Service providers. For this particular RFP, we are looking for experts in early childhood health and nutrition services. This vendor will be our support service delegate agency, which means not only are they going to provide direct services to our delegate agencies, but they're also going to be a consultant to us here at DFSS. Direct service delegate agencies with Head Start funding are required to ensure that infants, toddlers, and preschoolers have access to health and nutritional care. Next slide. So just a little bit of a background. We've been able, through the various years, to strengthen our health and nutrition services systems, relevant policies and procedures, and meet our program performance standards at both federal and state and local levels solely across all of our network providers because of our various support service contractors. We developed innovative and effective practices for improving children's health and nutrition. We did this at the grassroots level and worked our way through delivering services to our delegate agencies, not only on a daily basis, but ongoing, continuous care to improve health and nutritional outcomes for our low-income children and families. Next slide. So the goals. So as a support service delegate agency, this vendor would have specialized knowledge, expertise, credentials, everything that is spelled out in the RFP to support our direct service delegate agencies and their management to meet our funder requirements. So the three broad objectives are: we want this vendor to implement best practices in the early childhood development field. We want this vendor to help us to remain in compliance with relevant federal, state, and local performance standards. And most importantly, we want to see improved outcomes for young children and their families. Next slide. So here's some of the program requirements. What we're looking for is one entity that would provide these services citywide that can meet the following required qualifications and conduct the following required activities. So as I mentioned earlier, DFSS is looking for the vendor to provide guidance on subject-related policies and procedures, assisting us with policy memoranda related to best practices, subject area research, program requirements, and standards. The support service agency will be expected to review and provide updates to help in nutrition policies, procedures, and memoranda, at least annually. There may be some other things that crop up during the year from our funders that we might seek your guidance on. Consult with DFSS to provide clarity, service expectations, meet program requirements, advise DFSS in the health and nutritional issues that you see as a result of working with the direct service agencies and their various populations and well-being of those delegate agencies, the families, the staff, and of course, the children. And then act as a co-chair of our quarterly Health Services Advisory Committee and co-chair the relevant health subcommittee. Next slide. And we've included for you and in the RFP all of the various program standards that we have to meet, not only federal, but state and local. So this is in the RFP for you to peruse the various links. Next slide. Performance goals and outcomes. So based on those requirements that we just saw, we have developed performance outcomes that will be assessed in the following manner. Of course, we're going to refer back to all of the compliance standards and requirements and ask that our SMEs or subject matter experts would provide intensive training and technical assistance. We would ask also that you do pre and post training surveys, because this assesses the impact of the training that our staff have received. Next slide. And so some of the ways that we're going to track output metrics, and this is not all inclusive, but to give you an idea of the way that we track. So we're looking at the number of trainings that have been provided, number of hours of intensive TNTA, number of completed direct service agency training plans, corrective training plans, or quality improvement plans, the number of community partnership collaborations that the SME has been able to provide, number of medical homes that are established, number of hours that's provided in our health services advisory committee and relevant subcommittees, number of parent trainings that have been conducted, number of materials that you've created and or distributed, number of delegate and partner agency site observations and consultations, and then the number of individual child and pregnant mothers that have been supported. In addition to the performance indicators and output metrics listed above, we encourage you to propose additional indicators and metrics, including those that demonstrate early success and indicative of participants' progress. And you can do this a number of ways through prior trainings that maybe you've provided, and then some of the outcomes of those trainings, impact data, letters of support from various agencies. So we ask you that in the RFP to upload that information, anything that's going to support your application. Next slide. All right, this is the various selection criteria that we will be using. So we're looking at community investment and responsiveness. You'll be asked to demonstrate a clear understanding of our target population, strengths and assets, needs and challenges. We'll ask you to demonstrate client and community engagement activities that inform service delivery. your expertise with target population, and relevant competencies and capabilities and/or infrastructure. What is your commitment to DEI and access? Leadership. Does your leadership reflect a diversity of people and communities? Next slide. Organizational capacity. We'll ask you to demonstrate, do you have qualified staff that are responsible for oversight and management? Do you have adequate systems and processes needed to support monitoring program expenditures and fiscal controls? Do you have adequate human resources and the capacity to hire and manage? Do you have expertise working with the target population and capabilities and/or infrastructure? What is the respondent's organization? Does it reflect and engage the diversity of people from all communities? Next slide. Strength of proposed program. So here we're looking for you to define the services that are to be provided. We are also looking to see if you have linkage agreements with other organizations or agencies that are appropriate to addressing the needs of the target population and the desired outcomes. Does the proposed program support by a strong national, local, and evidence-based or align with best practices for the relevant field? Do you demonstrate a clear understanding of our target population, their needs and their challenges? And what is your effective approach to identifying and retaining program participants, including any rules and regulations that reduce barriers to participation? Next slide. Performance management and outcomes. So here we're really looking at evidence of strong past performance. And what were the desired outcomes, the performance metrics, and any other notable accomplishments in providing services to the target population? This is where you get to brag on yourself a little bit. Send us any information that you want us to know about your program and why you're unique and you can provide these services that we seek. Do you have the relevant systems and processes needed to track and report performance on program outcomes? Do you have relevant experience in using data to inform and improve practices and services? And what are your relevant systems and processes that are needed to collect and store key participant and performance data? Next slide. Here we want to know about reasonable cost, budget, justification, and leverage of funds. Do you have the fiscal capacity to implement the program? What other leverages of funds can you make in-kind contributions to support the total program and administrative costs, either state, federal, foundation, corporate, or individual donations? Do you demonstrate reasonable implementation costs and funding requests relative to its financial and human services capacity? Next slide. And again, we ask you to submit any documenting evidence and supporting documents, reports, studies, other documentation that shows performance toward reaching the program goals, demonstrating results and accomplishments. Be sure to attach the resumes for key staff that are overseeing the program and attach your organization's budget. Next slide. So here we're looking at the timeline. Today is the pre-proposal webinar, and the applications are due September 13th, 2023. Next slide. We're reiterating the applications are due on September 13th, 2023 by noon. They must be submitted via online application. We're not accepting any emailed or fax proposals. Next slide. And I think that may be you, Mackie.
Yes. So now I will go through some of the more technical aspects of actually submitting the application and what that looks like through our iSupplier slash e-procurement system. I'm going to be saying e-procurement throughout the rest of the presentation, but if you see iSupplier somewhere, it's the same thing. We like to interchange them. So this first slide of information is a few resources for you for help with this because it can be a little bit of a complicated process. So if you are a new agency trying to contract with the city, and if you have questions about registering to do that, you would go to this website here, to this email. And then if you have questions about the e-procurement system, it's the same email, or you can reach out to 312-744-HELP. And then there are also documents and videos that kind of walk through some of this same stuff on the city website at this link here. And then, of course, this webinar will be on the DFSS website, along with other information about this specific RFP. So there are places you can go if you get stuck. You can also reach out to myself. My contact information will be at the end. So if you run into problems, we'll get you where you need to go. So don't worry. But we'll get into how to set yourself up for success with this. So, like I said, if you had never done business with the city before, you got to register into iSupplier and e-procurement. We suggest you do that as soon as possible because it can take a few days just to get your account all set up, and we don't want you to be in a position where you're rushing. So, if you need to do that now, sooner is better than later. And then as you're going through and answering all your application questions, we suggest everybody review the RFP narrative really carefully because all of the questions are going to align very closely with the scope and selection criteria that are in the RFP and that also B just went through very thoughtfully. So use all of that information as guidance as you're formulating your answers. But for the answers themselves, the e-procurement system will only take a 4,000 character limit, and that includes punctuation and spaces. So one thing we suggest is writing your answers out in a Word document or something so you can track all of those characters because e-procurement won't count them for you. It'll just cut you off without telling you that. So it's best to do it somewhere else so you can say everything you want to say and then transfer it into the system. And then another finicky thing about e-procurement, you really don't want to use that back button. It will, like the reverse previous page button, it will mess you up and it won't save any of your stuff. So just try to avoid that. So then you can submit your application and keep working on it up until the deadline, which, as we previously stated, is September 13th at noon exactly. It can take about 30 minutes to an hour to actually submit it because little errors pop up. You realize you haven't attached something, and it can take a little bit for the system to go through. So we suggest leaving plenty of time to get that in because late applications can't be accepted. They won't even come through to us. So you really got to make sure you're getting it all the way in before that noon deadline. But again, if you have issues, you can call the e-procurement hotline. The number's listed right there, 312-744-4357. But keep in mind that is only or open during business hours, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. So if you're, it's another reason to start early, keep saving, make sure you're ahead of the game so that if you do run into problems, you're leaving a lot of time to get yourself help. Then if you're a new agency, there are a few things that you're going to need to put into the e-procurement system. One, provide articles of incorporation and any amended articles of incorporation. Two, your IRS affirmation letter. For nonprofit agencies only, this letter must be dated within 60 days of submittal. You can obtain this by calling the IRS directly. If you are a for-profit agency, you submit your original letter from the IRS showing your FEIN number. You need your DUNS number. I don't know if people call it a DUNS number, but whatever. You need your central contractor registration. You can provide a copy to entity overview page on the SAM website, sam.gov, and then you need a certificate of good standing letter with the state of Illinois. These are those resources. Again, you could reach out to customer support at cityofchicago.org or this number again for e-procurement help, or there are training documents and videos at this link here. Again, for e-procurement. Okay, so one important part of getting your application all the way through in e-procurement is accepting an amendment. We might add an amendment to e-procurement that's amending the RFP itself if we're adding new information, we're correcting something, we are changing the due date, we are people have asked us some questions. We want to make sure everybody has the same information. So but in order to make everything fair, we need to be really, really sure that everybody has gotten the chance to see and accept this amendment. So there's a really kind of lengthy process of how to accept an amendment. And so we're going to go through that to make sure that everyone's prepared for this aspect of it. So this is a screenshot of the e-procurement system. So this is kind of what you're getting yourself into. But to create your application, you're going to go over to, like, on the right side of the screen here, you're going to see actions. You're going to select create quote and then go. And that's when, if we've already attached an amendment, that's going to pop up here, warning, there's been an amendment. You click view amendment history, and that takes you to this page. If you want to read the RFP itself, that's when you're going to go down to number 1 here to this document number, and that's going to take you to the RFP text. If you want to review the changes that the amendment is bringing up, you go to this 2 document here to these little glasses under review changes. And then if to acknowledge that you have read, understand, and received the amendment, you click number 3 here to acknowledge amendments. And that's going to bring you to this page where you click I accept the terms and conditions, then you click acknowledge again, and that's going to bring you to this page where you once again confirm that you have seen the amendment, you have read the amendment, you agree with the amendment. You click yes, and then finally that's going to bring you to this page where you again have to check that you have read and accepted the terms and conditions, and then finally you can press accept up here. Something to note is you do have to click this little box before you're able to accept it. That's just, it's not in the right order, so just to note that. So that's, once you've done that, you've accepted the amendment. And if you've already started an application and we add an amendment once you've already started, once you accept the amendment, all your previous answers will move over to the new amended version of the RFP. So you don't have to worry about that. But now we can get into submitting an application. So we're still in the e-procurement system. You've answered all your questions. You have attached everything you need to attach. You've accepted the amendment. And so you're ready to submit. So first you're going to save a draft just to be safe, because you got to save all the time. Like, truly, anytime you change anything, I would recommend saving. And then you're going to press continue. And then what's probably going to happen is you're going to get a little error up here. It's common to get some little error messages, and we're going to go through how to address the most common ones that pop up so that you can clear them yourself and then get your application submitted. So one error that often comes up is this error right here that says the RFQ control requires you to quote on all lines. And that might seem really weird, and it is, but that's okay. Because what you're going to do is you're going to see lines here. There's going to be a little tab either on the side or on the top that says lines. And what we use that for is it's budget lines, but they're something we build in from our end for the contracting aspect of the RFP process. So it's not something you need to worry about at this stage. All your budget information is going to go into the budget Excel forms that are attached, and you'll see those, and those will be fine to fill out. But the system needs you to put in a number into these lines. It just needs to acknowledge from its inside its own self that you've written something. So you can write the accurate information if you want, but really we just need to have those boxes not be blank. So just put whatever number you want in there, because all the information we need is going to be in those other attachments. So that's one of the most common errors. The other one we see a lot is this one up here: a quote value is required for requirement, first name. So requirement is what e-procurement calls the application questions, and quote value is what they call the answers. So all this is saying is that you forgot to answer one of the questions. You forgot to put in first name somewhere. Great. You throw that in, you save, it should be fine, good to go. So then say you've cleared all of your errors. and you've clicked continue, and now you see this and it's accepted it, and you've seen this review and submit up in the corner here, and then it's actually ready to submit. Now you press submit, then you'll get an opportunity to read through all your information, make sure you've attached everything you want to attach, that everything here is correct, and then you're going to scroll down to the bottom of the page, and this is where you're going to put in your e-signature, just name and title, and then check this little box. And you do have to put in your name and title before you check the box. That's just the order it needs you to do it in. And then on the other side of the screen, you're going to click this submit button, and you'll be good to go. And you'll see this screen, and you'll get this little confirmation. Make sure you do get to this confirmation screen, that nothing buffers too much and that you see this. And then you'll get a confirmation email from eProcurement to the email that you have created the account through within 24 hours. If you aren't seeing it, check spam. You can also reach out to us and we can tell you if we're seeing it on our end, is another way to deal with that. So I am not seeing any questions right now. I don't think we have any. So I think I can move on to right here. Just if anyone's watching this, this is the contact information. So reach out to B if you have programmatic questions about something that's expected of you and anything you're trying to put into your application. And if you have non-programmatic questions about e-procurement or anything else, you can reach out to this email or this phone number that you've seen before. And then my email and phone number are right here in case you have whatever question you have that e-procurement isn't helping you answer. So B, if you have anything to say, I think we can wrap up.
All right. Well, thank you, Maggie. Thank you for joining us. Have a good day.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Bye-bye.